Hello, everyone. Welcome back to English in Advance. I'm Jessica, your host for today. If this is your first time joining our community, let me just say, we are so glad you found us. Here, we release new English lessons every single day, all designed with one goal in mind, to help you build real, confident fluency faster than you ever thought possible. Today, we are doing something special. This isn't just another lesson. This is a masterclass. We are going to dive deep, really deep, into the skills, the habits, and the mindset that separate good English speakers from truly advanced ones. This session is designed to do more than just improve your listening. It's here to fundamentally sharpen the way you think in English, the way you form your sentences, and the way you express your unique personality. We will walk through real-life conversational examples, explore sophisticated vocabulary as it's actually used, and engage in practice drills that will push you to respond not just correctly, but naturally and with confidence. By the time we finish today, you will have a powerful new set of tools. Tools you can start using immediately in your daily conversations to express yourself with ease, elegance, and incredible accuracy. Before we jump in, I want to ask you a small favor that will make a big difference. Please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and, most importantly, click that little bell icon. Turning on notifications means you'll never miss out on one of our daily lessons, and it helps our community grow. Now, find a comfortable spot, perhaps grab a pen and some paper, and let's begin this exciting journey to advanced English fluency together. When we hear the phrase, advanced English, what comes to mind? For many learners, it conjures images of long, complicated words or dense academic grammar rules. But I want to let you in on a little secret. True advanced English is rarely about just dropping a difficult word into a sentence. It's much more subtle. It's about the smoothness of your speech, the precision of your words, and the appropriateness of your tone for any given situation. It's the art of knowing how to choose your words based on who you're talking to and where you are. Let me tell you a quick story about a friend of mine. Let's call him Leo. Leo is incredibly smart and his vocabulary is huge. One day, he was in a very important business meeting. The client was a little bit worried about a project deadline. Leo wanted to say that he understood their concern, but instead of saying something simple and reassuring, he said, "Your trepidation is demonstrably palpable." The client just stared at him, completely confused. The meaning was technically correct, but the words were too formal, too academic. It created a distance instead of building trust. Later, his boss suggested he could have said something like, "I can certainly see why you're concerned, and I want to assure you we have a plan." The meaning is the same, but the feeling is completely different. This is the essence of what we're talking about today. In a casual chat with a friend, you might say, "I'm a bit tired today." It's perfect for that context. But in a professional email to your boss, you might write, "I'm feeling slightly fatigued after a long day of meetings and will review the report first thing in the morning." The word choice elevates the tone, making it suitable for a professional setting. Let's try a little practice with this right now. I'll give you a simple, everyday sentence, and I want you to repeat the more advanced, nuanced version after me. Let's start with a simple one. "I don't like this idea. It's direct, but it can sound a little harsh." Here's a more advanced version. "I'm not entirely convinced this is the best approach." Notice how it's softer, more polite, and opens the door for more discussion. It doesn't shut the conversation down. Let's say it together. I'm not entirely convinced this is the best approach. Good. Now let's try another one. Simple version. I don't know. A perfectly fine answer, but sometimes it can stop a conversation. Let's try the advanced version. I'm not certain at the moment. This version implies you might find out later, that you're thinking about it. It sounds more responsible and thoughtful. Repeat it with me. I'm not certain at the moment. Excellent. This shift from being just direct to being precise and thoughtful is a cornerstone of advanced communication. Beyond individual words, advanced English is about the flow of your sentences. It's about how you connect your ideas so that your listener can follow you effortlessly. Native speakers don't speak in a series of short, disconnected sentences. They weave their ideas together using connectors, transitions, and small conversational phrases that act like bridges, making the whole conversation feel like a smooth journey. For instance, instead of just answering a question with a simple yes or no, an advanced speaker might add a phrase that acknowledges the other person's perspective. Imagine someone says, I think we need to invest more money into marketing. Instead of just saying, I agree, you could say, you're absolutely right. And to build on that, I think we should focus on social media first. This not only shows agreement, but also expands the conversation. It shows you are an active participant, not just a passive respondent. Let's do a short conversational shadowing exercise to feel this flow. Shadowing, if you're not familiar, is when you listen to me and repeat what I say almost immediately, trying to match my pace, rhythm, and intonation. It's an incredibly powerful technique. Imagine a colleague says to you, I think we should cancel the meeting tomorrow. I don't think we're ready. A basic reply could be, no, let's not cancel it. It's a bit confrontational. Now here's a more advanced collaborative reply. I understand your point, but perhaps we could reschedule it for later in the week instead of canceling altogether. This response validates their feeling, I understand your point, offers a solution, reschedule, and provides a reason, instead of canceling altogether. Now let's try to say that together slowly. I'll say a part and you repeat, I understand your point, but perhaps we could reschedule it, instead of canceling altogether. Now let's try it all at once, with a natural, helpful tone. I understand your point, but perhaps we could reschedule it instead of canceling altogether. That smoothness is what we're aiming for. Another critical skill for reaching an advanced level is the ability to paraphrase. Paraphrasing simply means saying the same thing, but using different words. This skill is like a secret weapon for fluency. Why? First, it's incredibly useful when you can't remember a specific word. Instead of pausing awkwardly, you can just explain the idea in another way. Second, it helps you avoid repeating the same words over and over, which makes your speech sound much more interesting and dynamic. Let's practice this. I'll give you a simple sentence and I want you to think of a different way to say it. The sentence is, she was very happy about the news. How else could you say that? You could say, she was absolutely delighted when she heard the news. Or perhaps, the news filled her with immense joy. Another option could be, she was thrilled to hear the news. All of these mean the same thing, but they add a different flavor, a different level of intensity. Paraphrasing is also a powerful tool for active listening. When you're in a conversation, especially an important one, paraphrasing what the other person said shows them that you are truly listening and that you understand. It helps to confirm that you are on the same page and can prevent misunderstandings. For example, if your team member says, "I'm worried that with the current workload, we won't have enough time to test the software properly before the launch," you could paraphrase to confirm your understanding by saying, "So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're concerned that we might have to sacrifice quality to meet the deadline." This gives them a chance to say, "Yes, that's exactly it," or to clarify their point. It makes the conversation a collaborative effort. Let's practice that. I'll say something, and you try to paraphrase it as a question. I'll say, "I just think that our current strategy isn't reaching younger customers." Your paraphrase could be, "So, what you're saying is we need to find a new way to connect with a younger demographic." This skill is essential in professional settings and makes you a much more effective communicator. Now let's move on to something fun. A vocabulary upgrade drill. The key here is not just to learn bigger words, but to learn words that fit naturally into the context. Using a very fancy word in a simple, casual conversation can sound strange. The goal is to be precise. Let's take the common word big. Instead of always saying big, you have other options depending on what you mean. If you're talking about a building, you might say it's enormous. If you're talking about a problem, you might say it's a substantial problem. If you're talking about a difference between two things, you could call it a considerable difference. Let's take another common word, small. Instead of just small, you could say something is tiny if it's really, really small. You could say a detail is minute if it's very fine. Or you could say someone's contribution was insignificant if it had no effect. Let's try one more. The word help. A great simple word. But you could also use assist, which is a little more formal, like in, "Could you assist me with this report?" You could use support, which often implies emotional or long-term help, like, "Thank you for supporting me through that difficult time." Or you could use aid, which is often used in more serious situations, like, "The organization provides aid to disaster victims." Let's put this into practice. I'll say a simple sentence, and I want you to say it back using one of the more advanced alternatives we just discussed. Ready? The simple sentence is, "The company made a big profit this year." How could you upgrade that? You could say, "The company made a substantial profit this year," or even a considerable profit. Let's try another. The simple sentence is, "Can you help me with this?" A more formal version would be, "Could you assist me with this?" Your turn. Say it out loud. "Could you assist me with this?" Fantastic. This practice of consciously choosing a more precise word will gradually build your active vocabulary. When practicing advanced English, you also need to focus on tone and politeness strategies. In many cultures, being direct is a sign of honesty and efficiency. In English-speaking cultures, especially in the United States, directness can sometimes be perceived as rude or aggressive, particularly in professional or new social situations. How you say something is often just as important as what you say. For example, the command, "close the window," is perfectly clear, but it can sound a bit demanding, like an order. An advanced speaker would soften this request. They might say, "Would you mind closing the window?" "Lao morinti." Or, a little more casually, "Could you close the window, please?" "Si guapo." This simple change makes the request feel softer, more polite, and gives the other person a sense of choice, even if it's just a formality. Let's do a quick role-play exercise to get a feel for this. Imagine you are in a team meeting and a colleague, let's call her Sarah, suggests an idea that you think won't work. Your first instinct might be to say, "You're wrong," or "That's a bad idea." But that would likely make Sarah feel defensive and could harm your working relationship. Instead, an advanced speaker would use polite disagreement strategies. You could start by acknowledging her contribution. You might say, "I see where you're coming from, but I have a different perspective on this." Another excellent phrase is, "That's an interesting point, but perhaps we could also consider another approach." Notice how both of these phrases validate the other person's input before introducing your own idea. This makes your disagreement feel collaborative rather than confrontational. Let's practice saying those two phrases. Try to use a respectful and thoughtful tone. First one, "I see where you're coming from, but I have a different perspective." Now the second one, "That's an interesting point, but perhaps we could also consider another approach." Using these phrases will make you sound much more diplomatic and professional. Finally, for this section, let's talk about speed. Many English learners believe that speaking fast makes them sound more fluent and advanced. In reality, the opposite is often true. Speaking too quickly can make you harder to understand and can even make you sound nervous. True advanced speakers don't rush. They speak with clarity, confidence, and precision. They use pauses strategically. A pause can give your listener a moment to absorb what you've just said. It can also be used for emphasis, right before you share an important point. Native speakers use rhythm and stress to make their message clear. They emphasize the important words in a sentence. Think of it like music. There's a beat, a rhythm. Rushing through your words is like playing a song too fast. All the notes get jumbled together. In this masterclass, we will practice speaking at a natural, comfortable pace with just the right amount of pauses to let our words land with impact. Don't be afraid of silence. A short pause is a powerful communication tool. One of the biggest hurdles to reaching advanced fluency is the habit of translating in your head. When you think in your native language and then translate to English, you're doing double the work. This process is slow, it's inefficient, and it often results in sentences that sound unnatural because grammar and sentence structures are different across languages. Advanced speakers think directly in English. This allows them to respond quickly, spontaneously, and naturally in conversations. So how do you train your brain to do this? You can start with a very simple daily practice. Start describing the world around you, but do it silently, in your head in English. For example, when you're walking to work or sitting in a coffee shop, just observe and describe. You see a busy street. In your mind, you can think. The street is crowded with people rushing to their destinations. I wonder where they are all going. You see a child eating an ice cream cone. You might think to yourself, "That little boy looks so delighted as he takes each bite of his ice cream cone. The chocolate is dripping down the side." The key is to use rich, descriptive language. Don't just think, "It's a tree." Think, "The tall, old oak tree has thick branches that are covered in green leaves." The more you do this, the more you build the mental pathways for thinking in English, and the easier it becomes to form advanced sentences naturally when you actually need to speak. Let's try this together right now. I'll give you a basic thought in simple English, and I want you to try and upgrade it to something more descriptive and advanced. I'll give you a moment to think before I give you my version. The basic thought is, it's a nice day. What could you say that's more descriptive? You could say, it's a pleasantly warm day with a soft breeze moving through the trees. Let's try another one. The basic thought is, she is tired. How could you upgrade that? You might say, she looks completely drained after such a long day at work. Or, she appears to be exhausted. Now I want you to repeat my advanced versions after me and really try to match the rhythm and the descriptive feel of the sentences. First one. It's a pleasantly warm day with a soft breeze moving through the trees. And the second one. She looks completely drained after such a long day at work. This internal monologue is a powerful exercise to make English your language of thought. Another essential skill for making your English sound truly advanced is mastering idiomatic expressions. Idioms are those colorful phrases where the meaning of the phrase as a whole is different from the literal meaning of the individual words. For example, the idiom to break the ice has nothing to do with breaking actual frozen water. It means to say or do something to start a conversation in a social setting and make people feel more comfortable. Using idioms correctly shows a deep understanding of the language and culture. It makes your English sound more authentic and natural. Some common examples you might hear are to bite the bullet, which means to decide to do something difficult that you've been putting off, or to see eye to eye, which means to agree with someone. Let's practice using a few idioms in full sentences. It's important to learn them in context. Repeat these after me. Let's start with break the ice. I told a funny story to break the ice at the start of the meeting. Now let's try another one. Sweeten the deal, which means to add something extra to an offer to make it more attractive. We need to sweeten the deal before the client agrees to sign. And one more, hit the nail on the head. This means to describe a situation or a problem exactly correctly. After weeks of hard work, they finally hit the nail on the head with their new proposal. These idioms, when used in the right situation, can make your English much more vivid and memorable. Now, let's put these idioms into a short role-play scenario. Imagine you're talking to a friend about starting a new project. I'll play the friend and you can play yourself, using the idioms we just practiced. Your friend says, I'm a little nervous about meeting the new team members for the first time. What could you say using break the ice? You could reply, don't worry, I'll help you break the ice with a few introductions. Now your friend says, I'm not sure they'll accept our first offer. It might be too low. How could you use sweeten the deal? You might say, well, maybe we can sweeten the deal by offering a small discount for their first order. This kind of mental practice, imagining when you would use these phrases, helps you recall them more easily in real-life conversations. Advanced English also involves being able to shift your level of formality, what linguists call register, depending on the setting. In casual conversations with friends or family, using contractions like I'm, don't, and can't is completely natural and expected. In fact, not using them can make you sound a bit stiff or robotic. However, in very formal writing, like an academic paper or a legal document, or in a very formal speech, you might choose to use the full forms. I am, do not, or cannot for clarity and emphasis. The key is knowing which style is appropriate for the situation. It's about being flexible. Let's practice switching between these two styles. I'll say the informal version first and then the formal one. I want you to repeat both after me and notice the subtle change in tone. Informal. I'm happy to help. Formal. I am pleased to assist you. Let's try another. Informal. We don't have enough time. Formal. We do not have sufficient time. And one more. Informal. What's up? Formal. How are you doing today? Try repeating each of those pairs after me, really feeling the difference in how they sound and the situations where you might use them. This ability to adapt your language is a true sign of an advanced speaker. You should also pay close attention to collocations. Collocations are words that naturally and frequently go together in English. For native speakers, these word pairings sound right, while other combinations, even if grammatically correct, just sound wrong. For example, we say, make a decision. We don't say, do a decision. We talk about heavy rain, not strong rain. Learning these natural word partnerships is crucial for sounding fluent. It helps your speech flow more smoothly and saves you from having to think about every single word choice. Some other common examples are to take a risk, to catch a cold, to make progress, and to pay attention. Let's practice upgrading some sentences with more natural collocations. I'll give you a basic sentence and we'll improve it. Basic. She gave a good speech. A more natural and advanced way to say this is, she delivered a powerful speech. The verb deliver collocates strongly with speech. Let's try another. Basic. I'm very hungry. This is perfectly fine, but a very common strong collocation is, I'm absolutely starving. It adds more emphasis. One more. Basic. The company made big changes. A more professional and precise version would be, the company implemented significant changes. The verb implement is a great collocation for changes, policies, or plans. Now, repeat each of the advanced versions after me. She delivered a powerful speech. I'm absolutely starving. The company implemented significant changes. Paying attention to these word pairs as you read and listen will greatly improve your fluency. Another way to push your English to a more sophisticated level is to learn and use softeners and hedging language. These are words and phrases that make your statements less direct, less absolute, and therefore more polite and diplomatic. In American culture, especially in a professional context, avoiding overly strong or absolute statements is very important. For example, instead of saying, "This is wrong," which can sound accusatory, you could soften it by saying, "I'm not sure this is entirely correct." Or, "I think there might be a slight mistake here." Instead of telling someone, "You should do this," which sounds like a command, you could say, "Perhaps you might consider doing this." Or, "Have you thought about trying this?" These small changes make a huge difference. They make your English sound more respectful and collaborative. Let's practice this. I'll give you a very direct sentence, and I want you to repeat the softened version after me. Direct. I can't help you with that. It sounds a bit unhelpful. Softened. I'm afraid I won't be able to assist you with that at this moment. It communicates the same message, but in a much more polite way. Let's try another. Direct, you are late. This is a direct accusation. Softened. It seems you've arrived a little later than we expected. It acknowledges the situation without placing blame so harshly. Try repeating the softened versions after me, focusing on a gentle, helpful tone. I'm afraid I won't be able to assist you with that at this moment. It seems you've arrived a little later than we expected. Mastering this skill will make you a much more effective and well-liked communicator in English. Shadowing, which we touched on earlier, is another incredibly powerful tool for building advanced fluency. It's more than just repeating. It's about mimicking. In this exercise, you listen to a native speaker and you repeat what they say as quickly as possible, trying to copy their exact pronunciation, intonation, rhythm, and even the emotion in their voice. It trains your mouth muscles to produce English sounds correctly, and it helps you internalize the natural melody of the language. Let's try a short paragraph now. I will say a phrase, and I want you to repeat it immediately after me. Try to be my echo. Ready? Over the past few years, I've noticed how small adjustments in the way I speak can make a big difference in how I'm understood. By choosing the right words and pausing at the right moments, I can make my message clearer and more persuasive. This is the kind of skill we are developing in this master class. Excellent. Doing this for just a few minutes every day with a podcast or a news broadcast can dramatically improve your pronunciation and fluency. Let's also work on upgrading your adjectives and adverbs. A common habit among intermediate learners is to overuse the word very. It was very good. She is very smart. The movie was very bad. While grammatically correct, it's not very descriptive. Advanced speakers use a wider range of more powerful, precise words. Instead of very good, you could say excellent, outstanding, fantastic, or superb. Instead of very bad, you could say terrible, dreadful, or awful. Instead of very fast, you could say rapidly or swiftly. This not only makes your vocabulary richer, but also makes your speech more impactful. Let's make a little game out of it. I'll say a sentence with the word very, and I want you to replace it with a stronger, more advanced word. I'll give you a moment to think. The sentence is, "The view from the mountain is very beautiful." What's a better word for very beautiful? You could say, "The view from the mountain is breathtaking," or stunning, or spectacular. Let's try another. "He runs very fast, Yoreki." What's a good upgrade for very fast? You could say, "He runs incredibly swiftly," or "He runs at a rapid pace." This conscious effort to eliminate very from your speech will force you to expand your vocabulary and sound more descriptive. Finally, for this part, remember that advanced fluency is not only about speaking, it's about listening, deep, active listening. It's not enough to just understand the words someone is saying. You need to pay attention to how they are saying them. Listen to podcasts, interviews, and films in English. Pay close attention to how the speakers use pauses for effect, how they use intonation to convey emotion, and what subtle vocabulary choices they make. When you hear a phrase or a sentence structure that you like, one that sounds particularly fluent or intelligent, write it down. Say it out loud. Practice it. Try to use it in your own conversations. The best speakers are almost always the best listeners. They learn by absorbing the language around them. True fluency is a two-way street. It's about both expressing yourself and understanding others on a deeper level. One of the strongest markers of advanced English is your ability to use nuance. Nuance is that subtle, delicate layer of meaning that changes how your words are received. It's the difference between black and white, and all the shades of gray in between. Nuance is what allows a native speaker to choose, "I'd rather not," instead of, "I don't want to." "I don't want to" is very direct and can sound a bit harsh or final. "I'd rather not," however, is softer. It expresses a preference without being confrontational. Similarly, there's a difference between "you're right" and "I see your point." "You're right" means you completely agree. "I see your point" means you understand their perspective, even if you don't fully agree with it. These small differences carry significant emotional weight, and mastering them can make you sound more diplomatic, more professional, or warmer, depending on your intention. Let's practice injecting more nuance into our speech. I'll give you a very direct sentence, and you'll rephrase it with more nuance. I'll say it, then you can pause and think, and then repeat my more nuanced version. The direct sentence is, "Stop talking." This is an order and can be quite rude. How could you say this with more nuance? A more advanced way would be, "Could we possibly continue this conversation a little later? I need to focus right now." It explains the reason and is a polite request. Let's try another. The direct phrase is, "I don't like this." Again, very blunt. A more nuanced version would be, "It's not quite to my taste." This phrase is very common and expresses personal preference without judging the thing itself. Let's repeat these nuanced phrases slowly, paying attention to how they feel softer and more tactful. First, "Could we possibly continue this conversation a little later?" And the second, "It's not quite to my taste." Wonderful. Advanced fluency also involves the art of extending conversations naturally. Many learners, when asked a question, give a short, correct answer and then stop. This can make a conversation feel like an interview, and it puts all the pressure on the other person to keep it going. An advanced speaker, on the other hand, knows how to give an answer and then add a little extra information, a comment or a question to hand the conversation back to the other person. For example, if someone asks, "How was your weekend?" Instead of just saying, "It was good," which is a conversational dead end, you could say, "It was really good, thanks. I went hiking with some friends on Saturday and the weather was absolutely perfect. How about yours?" See how that opens the door for the other person to respond? It keeps the dialogue alive and flowing, and it makes you sound much more engaging and friendly. Let's try a few of these. I'll ask you a question. I want you to first give a short answer, and then think about how you could add something extra to it. The question is, have you seen that new sci-fi movie that just came out? Your short answer could be, "Yes, I have." Now, how can you extend that? Your extended answer could be, "Yes, I have." The special effects were incredible, though I found the storyline a bit predictable. Have you watched it yet? That is so much more engaging. It shares your opinion and asks a question back. This simple technique can transform your conversational skills. Another essential part of speaking advanced English is storytelling. We are all natural storytellers. Stories are how we connect with each other, share experiences, and make information memorable. When you tell a story well in English, you capture your listener's attention and hold it. A good, simple story in English usually has a clear beginning that sets the scene, a sequence of events in the middle, and a satisfying conclusion or reflection at the end. You don't need to be a great author. Just learn to structure your anecdotes clearly. Let's do a quick storytelling practice. I'll tell you a very short story about my day. I want you to repeat it after me, focusing on the flow and the connecting words. Last Saturday, I decided to explore a small cafe I had never been to before. As soon as I stepped inside, the smell of freshly baked bread and coffee filled the air. I ordered a cappuccino, and the barista smiled warmly as she handed it to me. I found a cozy little table by the window and spent the next hour just watching the world go by. It turned out to be one of the best cups of coffee I've ever had and a wonderfully peaceful afternoon. Now, I want you to try telling that same story but in your own words. You can start with, "Jessica told me that last Saturday," and then continue. The goal is to retell the events in a clear, sequential way. This kind of practice helps you get comfortable with narrative structure. To move towards advanced fluency, you should also focus on using a wider variety of connectors to link your ideas smoothly. While words like and, but, and so are essential, relying on them too heavily can make your speech sound repetitive and simple. Advanced speakers use a broader range of linking words to show more complex relationships between ideas. Words like however, therefore, on the other hand, as a result, and meanwhile make your speech flow more logically and sound more academic or professional. Let's take a simple example to see the difference. Basic: I studied hard. I passed the exam. The two ideas are separate. Advanced: I studied hard, and as a result, I passed the exam. The connector, as a result, clearly shows the cause and effect relationship. Let's try another. Basic: I wanted to go for a walk. It started raining. Advanced: I wanted to go for a walk. However, it started raining. The word however shows a clear contrast between the two ideas. Repeat these advanced versions after me, focusing on the rhythm that the connector creates. I studied hard, and as a result, I passed the exam. I wanted to go for a walk. However, it started raining. Integrating these words will make your arguments and explanations much more sophisticated. Another strategy to sound more advanced and confident is to actively work on reducing your use of filler words. Filler words are the little sounds and words we use to fill pauses while we're thinking, like, and, you know. While it's completely natural to use them sometimes, everyone does, even native speakers. Overusing them can make you sound hesitant and unsure of what you're saying. The trick is not to eliminate pauses, but to become comfortable with them. Instead of filling a pause with, just take a quiet moment to breathe and think. A silent pause sounds much more confident than a filled one. You can also use transitional phrases to give yourself a moment to think, such as, well, let's see. Or, that's an interesting question. Let's try this with me. I'll say a sentence filled with fillers, and then we'll say the clean, advanced version. Basic, I think we should, wait until tomorrow to make a decision. Now let's say it without the fillers, using a confident pause instead. Advanced, I think we should wait until tomorrow to make a decision. Notice how removing the fillers makes the sentence sound stronger and more decisive. Practice this by recording yourself speaking. Listen back and notice how often you use filler words. The first step to reducing them is simply becoming aware of when you use them. Let's also work on active vocabulary expansion. Advanced speakers don't just know more words, they know when and how to use them with precision. It's about having a range of options for a single idea. For example, instead of always saying, get better, you could say, improve, progress, or enhance, depending on the context. You improve your skills. You make progress on a project. You enhance the quality of a photo. They all mean get better, but they are used in different situations. Similarly, instead of always saying fix, you might use repair for a physical object, restore for something old, or resolve for a conflict or problem. Let's do a quick drill to practice this. I'll say a common sentence and you'll upgrade the verb to a more precise, advanced one. The sentence is, we need to fix this problem. What's a better verb for a problem? We can say, we need to resolve this issue. Let's try another. I want to get better at cooking. A better verb here would be, I want to improve my cooking skills. One more. She's making her English better every day. A great word here is enhance. She's enhancing her English skills day by day. Repeat each of the advanced sentences after me. We need to resolve this issue. So, I want to improve my cooking skills. She's enhancing her English skills day by day. Excellent. Another important social skill is learning how to interrupt politely. In a lively discussion, a meeting, or a group conversation, you often need to jump in to share your idea. However, a direct interruptions like, wait, I want to say something, can sound quite rude. An advanced speaker knows how to enter the conversation smoothly and respectfully. You can use phrases like, sorry to interrupt, but may I add something here? Or, if I could just jump in for a moment, I think. These phrases acknowledge that you are interrupting, which shows respect for the person who is speaking. Let's practice saying these polite interruption phrases. Use a friendly, respectful tone. Repeat after me. Sorry to interrupt, but may I share a quick thought? And another one. If I could just jump in for a second, I'd like to mention. Using these allows you to be an active, engaged participant in a conversation without seeming impolite or aggressive. Now let's practice summarizing, which is another key advanced communication skill. If a friend or colleague tells you a long, detailed story, you can show them you've understood and keep the conversation focused by briefly summarizing their main points. For example, if your friend talks for 2 minutes about how their flight was delayed, their luggage was lost, and the hotel was noisy, you might summarize by saying, wow, so it sounds like your trip started off with a lot of stressful challenges. This does 2 things. It confirms your understanding, and it shows empathy. It proves you were listening carefully. Let's try this. I'll give you a short paragraph, and I want you to think of a 1-sentence summary. The paragraph is, I've been working late every night this week trying to finish this huge project for a new client. On top of that, my boss keeps adding new tasks to my plate, and I honestly haven't had more than 5 hours of sleep any night. How would you summarize that? A good summary would be, so you've basically been overloaded with work and are completely exhausted from not getting enough rest. Your turn to try summarizing. Think of the last conversation you had. Can you summarize the main point the other person was making? This is a great mental exercise. As you practice all of these individual skills, remember that advanced fluency is not something you achieve overnight. It is the result of consistent daily practice, careful and active listening, and a willingness to step outside your comfort zone and experiment with new words and structures. Every single time you speak English, you have an opportunity to refine your skills. You are making progress every single day. Now that we have this strong foundation, let's add some even more sophisticated layers to our communication. Let's venture into some territory that will truly set you apart as an advanced C1 level speaker. Let's talk for a moment about advanced grammar, but please, don't think of this as a boring textbook lesson. We're going to talk about the mood and the drama of your sentences. Let's start with something called the subjunctive mood. The name sounds technical and intimidating, but the idea is actually quite simple and beautiful. The subjunctive is the mood we use for things that are not real, for wishes, hypothetical situations, dreams, and formal suggestions. It's the what if or I wish mood. For example, in a normal factual sentence, you would say, I was at the party. But if you are wishing, you would say, I wish I were at the party. That little change from was to were signals to the listener that we have entered an imaginary world. It's a subtle but powerful marker of an advanced speaker. Another common place you'll use it is in hypothetical conditions. Instead of saying, if I am the manager, I will make some changes, you would say, if I were the manager, I would make some changes. This immediately tells your listener that you are not currently the manager. You are speculating. Let's practice this. Repeat after me. I wish I were able to travel more often. If he were more prepared, he would feel more confident. Using this correctly, especially in professional or formal settings, adds a touch of elegance to your English. Now let's talk about adding a little drama and emphasis through something called inversion. Normally in English, our sentences follow a subject-verb order like, I have never seen such a beautiful sunset. It's clear and correct. But what if you want to make that sentence more powerful, more poetic, more dramatic? You can use inversion. You would flip the sentence structure and say, never have I seen such a beautiful sunset. It has the exact same meaning, but the feeling is completely different. It makes the word never incredibly strong. This is often used with negative adverbs and phrases like not only, rarely, and no sooner. For example, instead of, I not only finished my work, but I also helped my colleague, you could say, for emphasis, not only did I finish my work, but I also helped my colleague. This is a fantastic tool for storytelling and public speaking. Let's practice saying these inverted sentences. Feel the dramatic emphasis. Repeat after me. Rarely have I eaten such a delicious meal. No sooner had I sat down than the phone rang. Don't overuse this technique, but when you do, it will make your audience sit up and listen. Another powerful speaking technique that advanced communicators use all the time is the rhetorical question. A rhetorical question is a question that you ask without expecting an answer. Sounds a bit strange, right? But you do this to make a point, to engage your listener, or to make them think. The answer is usually obvious or implied in the question itself. For example, if you're standing in the rain without an umbrella, you might say to your friend, "Could this day get any worse?" You're not actually asking for a list of potential new problems. You're making a point that the day is already very bad. In a presentation, you might use a rhetorical question to introduce a new topic. You could say, so, what is the single most important factor for success? and then you would immediately answer it yourself. It's consistency. This technique pulls your audience in. It makes them feel like they are part of a dialogue, even if they are just listening. Let's think about how you can use this. Imagine you are trying to convince your team to adopt a new software. Instead of just listing the benefits, you could start with a rhetorical question. How many hours have we all wasted this month on repetitive administrative tasks? This gets everyone in the room to think about a shared problem. It creates an immediate connection. Then you can present the new software as the solution. Let's practice a few. Imagine you want to emphasize how amazing a trip was. You could say, "Wasn't that the most incredible vacation ever?" Or if you want to make someone reconsider a bad idea, you might gently ask, "Is that really the wisest choice right now?" Learning to use these questions effectively will make your speaking more dynamic, more persuasive, and much more engaging. Now let's do a deeper dive into something we touched on briefly earlier, using analogies and metaphors. These are not just for poets and writers. They are powerful tools for advanced communication in everyday life. An analogy or a metaphor takes a complex, abstract, or unfamiliar idea and compares it to something simple, concrete, and familiar. This creates an instant bridge of understanding for your listener. Think about it. Trying to explain how the internet works to someone in the 1950s would be incredibly difficult. But if you said, "It's like a giant global library where all the books are connected," they would instantly get a basic picture. Let's imagine a real-world scenario. You're a project manager, and you need to explain a complex project timeline to a client who isn't familiar with your process. Instead of just showing them a confusing chart, you could use an analogy. You could say, "You can think of this project like building a house. For the first month, we're laying the foundation. That's our research and planning phase. It's not visible, but it's the most critical part. Then, for the next 2 months, we'll be putting up the frame. That's the core development and design work. Finally, the last month is for all the interior details, the painting, the fixtures, which represents our final testing and polishing before we hand you the keys." Suddenly, a complicated process becomes a simple, logical story that everyone can understand. Creating good analogies is a skill that requires creativity, but you can start by thinking about simple, universal concepts: journeys, building things, cooking, sports, nature. Let's practice creating one. Let's say the topic is managing a team's budget. What's a good analogy? You could say, managing the team's budget is like packing for a long trip. You have a suitcase with a limited amount of space, and you have to decide which items are essential and which ones you can leave behind. See how that makes the concept of prioritization instantly clear? Now, let's bring many of these skills together to tackle one of the most challenging areas of communication: handling difficult or sensitive conversations. This is where advanced English truly shines. It's not just about what you say, but how you say it to preserve relationships and achieve a positive outcome. This is where you will use your softening language, your polite disagreement strategies, your active listening, and your nuance all at once. Let's create a scenario. Imagine you need to give some constructive criticism to a colleague. Let's call him Mark. Mark is a great guy, but he has been consistently late with his part of a team project, which is affecting everyone else. The wrong way to handle this would be to go to him and say, "Mark, you're always late and you're making the whole team suffer." This is accusatory and will immediately make him defensive. An advanced communicator would approach this very differently. First, you would choose a private, neutral time to talk. You might start by framing the conversation positively. You could say, "Hey Mark, do you have a few minutes to chat about the project? Your creative ideas have been a huge help so far." This starts the conversation on a collaborative note. Then, instead of using you statements like "you are late," you would use I statements and focus on the situation. You might say, "I've noticed that we've had some challenges meeting the recent deadlines, and I'm feeling a bit concerned about our timeline. I was wondering if we could brainstorm a way to make the workflow smoother for everyone." Notice the language. I've noticed, I'm feeling, I was wondering. It's about your perception and your feelings, not an attack on him. This opens the door for a real conversation. He might share that he's overloaded with another project, and you can work together to find a solution. This approach transforms a potential conflict into a collaborative problem-solving session. Practicing this kind of empathetic, strategic communication is perhaps the ultimate test of advanced fluency. Finally, after all these techniques, rules, and strategies, I want to talk about the most important thing of all, developing your personal speaking style. The ultimate goal of learning a language is not to sound like a perfect robot or to sound exactly like me or any other native speaker you hear. The goal is to sound like you. In English, your personality, your sense of humor, your unique way of seeing the world, that is your greatest asset as a communicator. Advanced fluency is when the language becomes a tool that is so comfortable in your hands. You can use it to express your authentic self without thinking about it. So how do you do that? First, pay attention to what you enjoy. Do you love telling stories? Then focus on learning the narrative tenses and transition words that make stories great. Do you have a dry, witty sense of humor? Learn the vocabulary and intonation for sarcasm and irony. Are you a very analytical, data-driven person? Master the language of logic, cause and effect, and precision. Don't try to be someone you're not. If you're a naturally quiet and thoughtful person, you don't need to force yourself to be a loud, energetic speaker. Instead, you can develop a calm, confident, and persuasive style. Your personal style is a combination of your word choice, your sentence structure, your rhythm, and your tone. It's what makes you, you. So as you practice, listen to different speakers, but don't just copy them. Take what you like, what feels natural to you, and incorporate it into your own voice. The moment you stop worrying about being correct and start focusing on being you is the moment you will make the leap from being a good English speaker to a truly great and memorable one. Once you begin to discover your own unique voice in English, you can start to master some of the most complex and powerful communication strategies of all. Let's begin with understanding the unspoken rules of conversation, starting with a concept called high context versus low context communication. This is a fascinating area of intercultural communication that has a huge impact on how we interpret messages. The United States, for the most part, is a low-context culture. This means that communication is expected to be explicit, direct, and clear. The words themselves carry the vast majority of the meaning. We say what we mean. If you need information, you ask for it directly. If you disagree, you state your disagreement, although politely, as we've practiced. The responsibility is on the speaker to be understood. However, many other cultures around the world are high context. In these cultures, the meaning is not just in the words, but in the context surrounding them. This includes body language, tone of voice, the relationship between the speakers, and what is not said. Communication is more indirect and nuanced. A direct no might be considered rude, so a person might say, "That will be very difficult," or "I will see what I can do," which in their context clearly means no. Let me tell you a story about a business negotiation. An American manager, let's call him David, was working with a potential partner from Japan, Mr. Tanaka. David laid out his proposal, and at the end he asked, "So, do we have a deal?" Mr. Tanaka was very quiet for a moment, and then he said, "This is a very interesting proposal. We will need to give it careful consideration." David, coming from a low-context culture, heard the positive words, "interesting," and "careful consideration," and thought the meeting went well. He was optimistic. He was completely shocked when he received an email a week later, politely declining the offer. What David didn't understand was that in Mr. Tanaka's high-context culture, the lack of an enthusiastic yes, the quiet pause, and the non-committal phrase were all clear signals of a no. He was being polite and allowing David to save face. As an advanced speaker in a globalized world, and even within the diverse society of the USA, understanding the spectrum is crucial. It helps you to not only speak clearly, but also to listen with a third ear, to understand the meaning behind the words. Now let's get very practical and talk about mastering phrasal verbs in professional contexts. Phrasal verbs, those combinations of a verb and a preposition or adverb, are everywhere in English, but at the C1 level, we move beyond just understanding them. We need to use them with precision, especially in the workplace. Many phrasal verbs have subtle differences in meaning that can change everything. For example, let's take the verb take. To take on a project means to accept responsibility for it. To take up a task means to begin it, and to take over a role means to replace someone in that position. They are all similar but not interchangeable. Imagine a team meeting. The manager might say, "I need someone to take on the responsibility for the client presentation." A team member could then volunteer, "I'd be happy to take that on." Then the manager might say, "Great." You can take up the work of gathering the data immediately. You will take over the role from Sarah, who is moving to another department. Let's organize our practice by function. For project management, you might need to draw up a plan, to prepare a written document, set up a meeting, to arrange it, carry out the tasks, to perform them, and wrap up the project to finish it. Let's practice a sentence with each. Repeat after me. First, we need to draw up a detailed project timeline. Could you please set up a conference call for tomorrow morning? The team is ready to carry out the next phase of the plan. Let's aim to wrap up the final report by Friday. For negotiations, you might hear phrases like give in, to surrender on a point, stand up to someone, to defend your position against them, or work out a compromise to find a solution. Using these accurately doesn't just show your vocabulary. It shows you understand the culture of the modern workplace. The next time you are in a meeting or reading a business email, pay close attention to the phrasal verbs being used. Write them down in context and practice using them yourself. Let's move to an even higher level of persuasive communication, the art of concession and refutation. This is a powerful strategy used in debates, formal arguments, and important meetings. It involves a two-step process. First, you concede, which means you acknowledge a valid point made by the other person. You agree with a small part of their argument. This is disarming. It makes you sound reasonable, fair, and shows that you've been listening carefully. It lowers the other person's defenses. Then, immediately after conceding, you refute. This is where you present your counter-argument, often using a transition word like however, but, or while that may be true. This structure makes your own point seem even stronger by contrast. Let's imagine a scenario. Your team is debating whether to invest in a new expensive piece of software. Your colleague, Maria, argues against it. She says, "This software is far too expensive. It will hurt our budget, and we can manage with our current tools." Instead of just saying, "You're wrong," you can use concession and refutation. You could say, "You're right, Maria. The initial cost is indeed quite high, and I agree that we need to be very careful with our budget." That's the concession. You've agreed with her main point. She feels heard. Now, the refutation. However, if we look at the amount of time we would save on manual data entry, at least 10 hours a week for the entire team, the software would actually pay for itself within 6 months. The long-term efficiency gain far outweighs the short-term cost. See how powerful that is? You've taken her argument, validated it, and then turned it around to support your own position. Let's practice the structure. I'll give you a point, and you try to form a concession-refutation response. The point is, we shouldn't launch the new product in the summer because sales are always slow then. Your response could be, "I understand your concern about a summer launch, and it's true that sales are traditionally slower during that season. On the other hand, launching in the summer would give us a huge head start on our competitors, who all wait for the fall." Practice this structure. It will elevate your persuasive speaking to an entirely new level. We've talked a lot about the words you choose, but advanced communication is also about the music of your voice. So let's do a deep dive into using vocal variety and prosody for engagement. Prosody is a technical term for the rhythm, stress, and intonation of speech. Essentially, it's musicality. Varying your prosody is what makes you sound interesting and engaging, rather than flat and monotonous. It involves 4 key elements: pitch, how high or low your voice is; tempo, how fast or slow you speak; rhythm, the pattern of stressed and unstressed words; and loudness, your volume. Advanced speakers manipulate these elements often unconsciously to convey emotion and meaning. For example, you might speed up your tempo when telling an exciting story and slow down when explaining a serious or complex point. You might raise your pitch at the end of a question and lower it to signal the end of a statement. You can use a louder volume for emphasis and a softer volume to create a sense of intimacy or confidentiality. Sarcasm is almost entirely communicated through prosody, a flat, slow delivery of words that are usually positive, like, "Oh, that's just great." Let's do an exercise. I am going to give you a very simple sentence. I never said she stole the money. I want you to say this sentence out loud 5 times. Each time, I want you to emphasize a different word and think about how it changes the meaning. First, emphasize I. I never said she stole the money, meaning someone else said it, but not me. Now emphasize never. I never said she stole the money, meaning you are strongly denying you ever said it. Now emphasize said. I never said she stole the money, meaning I might have implied it or written it, but I didn't say it. Now emphasize she. I never said she stole the money, meaning I said someone else stole it. Finally, emphasize money. I never said she stole the money, meaning she stole something else like the jewelry. That one simple sentence has 5 completely different meanings, all based on prosody. This is the power you have in your voice. Practice this by recording yourself reading a paragraph from a book. Read it once in a flat, monotone voice. Then read it again, pretending you are a news anchor, then a storyteller reading to children, then a lawyer making a final argument. Pay attention to how your pitch, tempo, and rhythm change. Becoming a master of your own vocal instrument is a hallmark of a truly advanced and captivating speaker. Let's now explore the very foundation of how we think and speak about abstract ideas, with a topic I call abstract language and conceptual metaphors. This might sound very academic, but it's one of the most practical and fascinating things you can learn about English. It's the secret code behind thousands of idioms and everyday expressions. In our minds, we unconsciously structure abstract concepts in terms of more concrete physical concepts. For example, a very common conceptual metaphor in English is, argument is war. We don't consciously think this, but the language we use to talk about arguments is filled with words of warfare. Think about it. You can win or lose an argument. You have to defend your position. You can attack someone's weak points. An idea can be shot down. Your claims should be indefensible. This conceptual metaphor gives rise to dozens of phrases. Once you see these patterns, you'll see them everywhere. Another huge one is, time is money. This is especially prevalent in American culture. We talk about spending time, wasting time, investing time, budgeting our time. We say time is a valuable commodity. This metaphor shapes our whole attitude towards time. Another one is ideas are food. You might hear someone say, that's food for thought, or I need some time to digest that information, or of a difficult concept, I just can't swallow that. Understanding these underlying metaphors doesn't just help you understand idioms. It allows you to speak more fluently and creatively because you understand the logic system that the language is built on. Let's practice. Think about the conceptual metaphor. Life is a journey. What are some phrases that come from this? You might think of, he's at a crossroads in his life. I don't know where I'm going in my career. She's come a long way. Don't look back. You're not going that way. Recognizing these deep metaphors is like having a backstage pass to the English language. It allows you to understand not just what people are saying, but how they are thinking. Finally, let's revisit storytelling, but at a C1 level. It's time to move beyond a simple beginning, middle, and end, and into advanced storytelling with narrative arc and emotional pacing. All compelling stories, from a Hollywood movie to a simple anecdote you tell a friend, follow a similar pattern called the narrative arc. It starts with an exposition, where you set the scene and introduce the characters. Then there's an inciting incident, the event that kicks off the story and creates a problem or a goal. This leads to the rising action, a series of events where the tension builds. This tension culminates in the climax, the peak of the story, the moment of greatest conflict or discovery. After the climax, there's the falling action where things start to wind down, and finally the resolution, where the story concludes and you share the lesson learned or the outcome. Let's apply this to a simple story about a work project. Exposition. Last year, my team was working on a really important presentation for a huge potential client. Inciting incident. The day before the presentation, our main computer crashed, and we lost the entire file. Rising action. We panicked. We stayed up all night, frantically trying to recreate the presentation from memory, dividing up the work, drinking endless cups of coffee. Climax. At 5 a.m., just as we were losing hope, our IT specialist, a quiet guy named Kevin, found a hidden backup on a forgotten server. He saved the entire project. Falling action. We quickly reviewed the file, made a few small improvements, and walked into the presentation running on pure adrenaline. Resolution. We ended up winning the contract. We learned never to rely on a single file, and that the quietest person in the room can sometimes be the biggest hero. See how that structure creates a dramatic and satisfying story? But structure is only half of it. The other half is emotional pacing. You control the listener's emotions by varying your tempo and level of detail. During the rising action, you might speak faster, using shorter sentences to convey a sense of panic and urgency. When you get to the climax, you might slow down, pausing dramatically right before the key moment to build suspense. During the resolution, your tone might become more reflective and calm. Mastering this combination of structure and emotional pacing is what separates a simple speaker from a captivating storyteller. The next time you tell a story, even a small one, think about the narrative arc. Think about how you can use your voice and your pacing to make your listener feel what you felt. We've now journeyed through the deepest and most intricate aspects of advanced English communication. From the unspoken rules of cultural context to the very music of your voice, from the logic of debate to the structure of a captivating story. These are the skills that lie at the peak of the mountain of fluency. They are challenging, yes, but they are also what make communication a true art form. We have come to the end of our master class. We have journeyed from the basic building blocks of what makes speech sound advanced, all the way to the subtle arts of nuance, persuasion, and authentic self-expression. You have practiced upgrading your vocabulary, mastering politeness, structuring your thoughts, telling stories, and even using advanced grammar with confidence. The sheer number of tools and techniques we've covered today might feel overwhelming, but please don't let it. You don't need to master everything at once. True fluency is not about perfection. It's about connection. It's about being able to share your ideas, understand others, and navigate any conversation with grace and confidence. Your journey doesn't end here. In fact, it's just beginning. I want you to think of this masterclass as a map. You now have the map and you know the path forward. The next step is to walk it day by day. Choose one skill we discussed today, just one, and focus on using it this week. Maybe it's trying to use a concession refutation structure in a discussion. Maybe it's paying attention to the conceptual metaphors you hear in a movie. Maybe it's just practicing your vocal variety by reading a story out loud. Small, consistent efforts are what build lasting fluency. Thank you truly for joining me and for dedicating this time to your own growth. You have taken a massive step toward becoming the kind of speaker who not only knows the right words but also knows how to deliver them with impact. I look forward to speaking with you again in our next lesson. Until then, keep practicing, stay curious, and remember that your voice is valuable and your story is worth sharing. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe and click that bell notification. That way you and I can continue this journey together every single day. Keep up the incredible work